Imagine if Bitcoin becomes the only money worth anything. And then everybody's like, but I don't have any of it. Well, your money's not worth shit. You got to get new money. You got to get money in Bitcoin.
That's what's going to happen.
And then there's only a certain amount of Bitcoin, right? Like the Bitcoin number is finite. Right. So like maybe there's no Bitcoin for you.
Right.
Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's what's going to happen.
That's what's going to happen.
You just predicted the future, Joe.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day. Most importantly, hope you're having a great new year. I know it's been a minute, a little hectic with the holidays and the traveling and all that, but today I wanted to go over the fact that, of course, Bitcoin did briefly break back above the $100,000 level, and then we had this instant sell-off. So then again, you know, everybody's getting concerned. Why is Bitcoin falling? But really, again, if we just have a look at what we're doing, is we're building this constructive pattern. And yes, you can argue that now, whereas the heart line was acting as support, it is now actually acting as resistance. But as of right now, we are currently sitting on the bottom of this area. Now, could we end up breaking down to the downside out of this, you know, rather than, for example, consolidating down here and then breaking to the upside? Yes, that is a possibility, of course, but I just want to point out the big picture here is that if you just, you know, put everything aside, yes, Bitcoin is down, you know, 5-6%, whatever, you know, the yearly candle has been put in. You can see we just started this new 2025 candle right here. And I would say that this was a phenomenal year for Bitcoin. There's absolutely nothing bearish about this candle if you're just looking at the overall year. And obviously, as we know, Bitcoin tends to, you know, you can see back here, you know, we put in one red and we put in three green, right? One red and three green. So of course, history does not have to repeat, but you know, we have our red, we have a beautiful green candle, obviously 2023, 2024, and of course, there's not that much data yet right now. Yes, we did start the year slightly down, but realistically, we're actually still having a green candle so far for the beginning of this year. So, you know, again, people getting bearish and freaking out about a lot of things. Don't forget the S&P, if you're looking at stocks, also kind of started, you know, maybe falling a little bit, but ultimately, what most of these markets are really just doing is building these constructive patterns, where as you can see right here, this is actually having the previous resistance on the S&P 500 actually starting to become support. You can see it's even starting to potentially go a little bit parabolic. So there's obviously a lot of reasons this could be happening. The one thing that we did talk about realistically that could be something to be worried about is we did have that CME Futures Gap. And, you know, if you guys zoom in right here, you could see that, you know, in order to close this gap, you'd pretty much have to go down to around 78,470. Now, obviously, if that was to happen, you know, we'd end up all the way down here. But really, we would just sort of be interacting with these moving averages, which, you know, you could have said the same thing over here. Oh, no, you know, we're going down, right? Because don't forget, you know, we had this peak right around March of this year. And then look, we had a downward slope here. We had a downward slope here, although this technically was a descending broadening wedge, which we knew was going to break to the upside either way. But for the most part, we're still in constructive pattern territory. I mean, just from the bottom of this move right here to the top, you had about 108% move for Bitcoin. And it's not out of the cards, you know, for Bitcoin to have these drawdowns. Currently, the lowest we went was 16%. Hypothetically, if we were to fill this futures gap, right, just this is a hypothetical, that would be a 30% drop for Bitcoin. Now, I know that seems scary on the surface, but we've seen this multiple times with Bitcoin. I know, especially if you're new, if you just bought, if you just got into it, if you've been holding off and then, you know, went above 100K and you bought your first Bitcoin, this might seem a little bit freaky, a little bit scary. But at the end of the day, it's funny because you hear everyone saying, man, I wish I could have bought cheaper. And then you get cheaper prices. And what ends up happening is these same people end up panic selling, right? So could there be some reasons to why the market is dipping? Yeah, I mean, Miles Dosher points out the US data did come in a little bit hot, causing a bond yield spike, ISM index higher than expected, JOLTS job openings increased. So we're in one of those strange phases where, you know, good data is bad data. And obviously a lot of people are, again, looking to what the FOMC is doing, still coming across a bit hawkish, although we did have the rates get lowered, but there is still that concern, not to mention the fact that I personally had said this previously, that going into the holidays, you tend to not really see any major trading. And considering that this particular year there was a presidential election and we are waiting basically for January 20th, you know, there's a lot of pressure on this day one strategic Bitcoin reserve thing, which I think is a little ridiculous. Like, first of all, the fact that the US is even talking about a Bitcoin strategic reserve in and of itself is pretty incredible news. But now it's like, we have to have it on day one. I mean, look, guys, I'm sure the president probably has a lot more important things to worry about on the first day than a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So, I hope there's not this massive disappointment on day one if it's not announced officially and then the price does tank, which would be absolutely ridiculous because these things take time. Don't forget, right? We had been talking about the potential of the ETFs for years on this channel. Never happened. Finally, we get the news, and what happens? The markets dumped 25% on the day, right? Well, not on the day, but like we had that spike. They went live and the markets dumped 25%, right? And then what happened? We said it was going to take 6 to 8 months for a lot of these asset managers to get comfortable with the performance, to start recommending it to their clients. And what happened? By the end of the year, we went from 45 all the way down to like 32-ish, and we closed. Well, we didn't close, but we got up to about 109,000. So again, just because it doesn't happen instantly, this is where that patience comes into play. So I do want to talk about a few things today. There's not an incredible amount of news, but I do want to talk about WTF is going on right now with Bitcoin, what we can expect. If that sounds good to you, you know what to do. Drop a comment, drop a like on this video. Obviously, I don't put a lot of these videos out, so it does help to spread these to other people. I do have some quick announcements before we move in, though. There is a Blowfin $200,000 challenge that is going on for the next 12 days. If you want to register now, you can actually use the link below in the description. You guys can see right here the trading volume, the prize pool, and obviously once we get up to those levels, that will be distributed. So then you just come over here, you click register, it'll take you to obviously my page, which by the way, if you do use my link, you are going to get extra deposit bonuses based on your deposit, as well as, and it's not actually listed here right now, but they are doing an iPhone giveaway. Maybe by the time you click the link, it'll be up. It's not currently up right now, but they are doing an iPhone giveaway. And there is, of course, the Femex trading competition going on over at Femex. There is 11 days for that if you want to join. And finally, just letting you guys know, the MetaSignals NFTs are selling out and we are going into the next tier now. So as you guys can see right here, there's only 900, and as they continue to sell, the price does increase. So, if you weren't following over on the free Discord for MetaSignals actually accurately was able to call, the potential short for the Bitcoin price. So just, like I said, it's a tool. You don't have to use it 100%, but I would suggest getting that lifetime access to that NFT if you are interested in gaining that edge for your trading. So let's talk about something really quick. While all the retail is panicking, which really, where is the retail? I don't even know where they are right now, a handful of people have reached out, but it does seem like the excitement is less on the retail end. But like Willy Woo points out, someone is apparently very hungry for these newfangled Bitcoins because this cycle has seen liquidity of about 3 million Bitcoin on exchanges, an equilibrium of sellers and buyers, not anymore. 240,000 Bitcoin got scooped up. And obviously we have MicroStrategy, about 192,000 of those. So, they're starting to, you're hearing the bells ring. You're hearing, the echo in the hallways, right? They're looking at MicroStrategy. They're looking at the ETFs. They're looking at this Bitcoin price appreciation. They're hearing talks of the Bitcoin strategic reserve. And I know that everybody wants $1 million Bitcoin tomorrow. But again, like I say to people, if Bitcoin went to $1 million tomorrow, do you have enough Bitcoin, right? So I always take these opportunities. I've been taking these opportunities for almost a decade now to just buy these dips, accumulate, chill back, and do nothing, because I do think that 2025, if history does repeat itself, this is the time to chill or accumulate on the way up. I don't think this is the time to be panicking. I think this is the time to be looking at those possible 20%, 30% dips, if we even get them anymore, right? Because we used to get 40%, and then in the next cycle, we started getting 30%. And this cycle, we've only been getting around 20 to 25. So I don't really know if we're even going to get those dips again. But if we do, for me personally, all the charts are screaming for buying. I mean, for example, again, the balances on exchanges have hit an all-time low. So we've always talked about the supply shock. We've had a few mini iterations of it. We really haven't seen it full-fledged just yet, but it is going to happen. The same way that we knew eventually companies were going to start buying it. We knew eventually countries were going to start buying it. We knew eventually strategic reserves were going to happen and ETFs were coming. And for years, everybody laughs. They laugh. They laugh at the idea of $100,000 Bitcoin. They laugh at the idea of strategic Bitcoin reserves. And then you start seeing it happen, right? So don't underestimate the possibility of this thing, because 7-8 years ago, this stuff that we're talking about would have been nothing but pie in the sky dreams. And then today, people are complaining because we might not have a strategic reserve on day one. Like, imagine that being the thing that you complain about, that we might not get the bill on day one. Imagine that being the worst case scenario. So like Dennis Porter points out, he says up to 20 strategic Bitcoin reserve bills have been introduced at the state level. So we know for a fact that we have places like Pennsylvania, Texas. We also have Florida, which is where I'm at right now currently, discussing it. And even, for example, Tennessee, I think they're beginning to look at it. And something you have to consider is like Cynthia Lummis was pointing out over in Wyoming, wouldn't it be funny if, the U.S. buying Bitcoin actually starts to scare these other countries into it becoming like the new digital arms race?
Wouldn't it be fun if the next arms race was not for weapons, it was for Bitcoin? Wouldn't it be fun if the U.S. is buying Bitcoin and it scares China and Russia so they start buying Bitcoin, and we have an arms race over Bitcoin instead of over weapons? That we're as globally, we're challenging each other to have a secure store of value.
And again, you hear things like this and you say to yourself, that could never happen, but again, like I said in the beginning of the video, every other thing we said could never happen or wouldn't happen is actually happening. Here's an example. You have Bhutan's new city, GMC, adopting Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. You also have Thailand's city, I literally think that's how you pronounce it, to pilot Bitcoin and crypto payments for tourists. Nothing stops this train, like Bitcoin Magazine points out. And this is Senator Bill Hagerty. I believe he's from Tennessee. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong. I'm not that big when it comes to politics. But even he expresses why he has support for a potential Bitcoin strategic reserve.
But I'm curious, Senator, there's a lot of people, and a lot of your peers probably, people who I talk to, who really think that crypto is a waste of capital and is not something that United States should double down on, and get so upset when they hear this talk of different states, whether it's Pennsylvania, now Texas, or us doing something nationally with a Bitcoin reserve. What was your aha moment? Why do you think this has real value for this country?
Well, it's taken some time, and my viewpoint has evolved. As you remember, Kelly, I was the U.S. ambassador to Japan. I saw a massive heist take place there with CoinCheck. I was deeply concerned about, where that cryptocurrency might have landed. But as I dug into the technology and saw the potential of the blockchain, where this could go, it's absolutely amazing. And then if I think about just basic principles of a decentralized currency like this, the freedom and the liberty that it supports, there's a lot of very positive aspects to this, and I think America should be at the forefront of it.
And I think it just comes down to the idea of the adoption curve of technology, right? In the beginning, everything is laughed at, right? You talk about automobiles replacing the horse and buggy. You talk about telephones replacing, mail, and electricity replacing, torches and fire, right? But I mean, just things like you have, this was a nice chart from Documenting Bitcoin. You could see that, at first it's kind of slow, right? And then it just takes off, right? And, eventually the adoption curve will slow down. And I wish I had the S curve up right now. That's really what I wanted to show you. But, you have these things like motor vehicles, televisions, VCRs, internet, broadband, mobile, internet services, etc. Obviously, there's other things like Netflix and Uber, right? There's lots of examples of technology where at first it seems crazy. At first, it doesn't really take off. People are skeptical to use it, right? And then eventually people realize this is actually a much better alternative, except the difference with Bitcoin is you're not talking about, a streaming service or transportation. You're talking about money, which has been a essential component to civilization across the world, right? You can go back, you can read the Bitcoin Standard when we were, trading rocks and seashells, or the tulip mania, right? Money, hard sound money, is something that humans have sought out for basically our entire existence, right? A way to express energy in the form of currency, and Bitcoin is literally the best form that humans have ever created. Now, whether or not you agree or disagree with that, that's fine. But again, we'll see how the S curve points out. We'll see how the adoption curve plays out. And I think that over time, we're going to find out that Bitcoin is the solution that we've been looking for, which is probably why you're going to start seeing a lot more of these reserves happening globally. In fact, I'm not sure if it was JP Morgan, I could be wrong, but one of those guys, they were saying that is the next big step, is the countries adopting it, right? And if you just look at what Morgan Stanley was saying, talking to their clients about Bitcoin, these are just a few things in their conversation. So Allocation convos now talking between 1% and 5%. Remember, before it was about 0. Nearly all asking, hey, should this replace gold? Could this possibly replace gold? Also, obviously, what is MicroStrategy doing? What are they, what's going on with them? Some asking for Bitcoin strategies beyond spot ETFs and demand increasing beyond our expectations. So this is a direct quote from Morgan Stanley themselves. Now, of course, they all have their own individual interests and you could take it with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, these are not conversations that were happening 2 years ago. Nobody wanted any allocation, let alone should I do 1 or should I do 5% allocation, right? And if you just take all the money in the world, you look at M2, you look at real estate, you look at all these trillions of assets, under management with all these guys, 5% is a huge deal. It is a massive deal. We've gone over that on this channel before. I've showed you the charts of what that could do. I mean, you're talking about literally surpassing gold, but let's take it a day at a time. I think what we don't want to happen, and what I don't want to happen for anyone on this channel, which is why, as you guys could tell, there's lots of channels that talk about altcoins and meme coins, and you could probably make some money on them, but from my experience, 90% of people will lose. And actually, I don't have a chart pulled up right now, but this is a true fact. If you took the top 20 cryptocurrencies, excluding Bitcoin, for the entire year, like say you got a basket of currencies from Ethereum all the way down to whatever, I guess, number 21 would be, and you held just that versus you held just Bitcoin, believe it or not, Bitcoin actually outperformed it. And I have to get the chart for you guys. Probably if you go follow me over on Twitter, I'm sure I retweeted it at some point. But the one thing that you don't want is to feel like you missed out. You definitely don't want to have that regret.
How did you turn it into...
Biggest mistake I've ever made, not buying Bitcoin when it was nothing. I mean, that's the biggest mistake I've made. It cost nothing at some point. You know what I mean? That was maybe the biggest mistake I've made. And not taking the time to understand it.
Yeah.
But how do you recover from it? You also understand that life is full of mistakes. Every country that exists because somebody didn't go to it and somebody did. That's how I always see the world. Every person that exists here exists because one person said no and another person said yes. That's literally how parents exist. Yeah, someone said no to your dad, someone said yes to your dad, now you're here. That's how it works.
So again, not too many crazy things to go over today. I don't want to make today a super long video. I know it's been a while. The narrative basically remains the same. Bob Lucas, if you want to talk about the charts, ultimately, when you have something that pumps over 105%, okay, and you're starting down here, basically, he's got this October area at around 30,000 and you're up to 108, having a pullback down to 90 or even down to that weird 74K area, it is considered healthy. As always, just be patient. He says this bull market is super healthy. And Bob Lucas is actually someone who I've been following now for almost a decade. I respect him a lot. Very level-headed analysis. And yeah, obviously, yes, could we go lower? Of course we could. But what were we doing here? We were putting in lower highs. We were putting in lower lows, right? And boom, right? Everyone could have said, oh, this is trending down. It's over. It's over. And what happens? We break the trend line. It's done. So, what do we think is going to happen, when we break around this trend line? Obviously, we are most likely going to continue to the upside, considering that is where the momentum is going. And I'll show you more on that in just a bit. And you can see that according to Cointelegraph, they posted this, but Bitcoin is at its most oversold level on the RSI since around $60,000. So obviously something can stay oversold for a long time. It can stay overbought for a long time, but take it with a grain of salt. Probably at this point, we might have some consolidation. And then I do think, I guess a lot might depend on what happens, the day of the presidency. It's probably going to be volatile. But ultimately, as we go into the new year, regardless of what they choose to do immediately with the strategic reserve, or if they don't, remember, Bitcoin didn't need a strategic reserve. It didn't need all this to get to where it was. It didn't need the approval of politicians. It didn't need countries to buy it, right? It was driven primarily by, cypherpunks and retail for years. Now, it's still being driven by those same people, except now everyone else is starting to also pay attention. So the story is only looking better and better for Bitcoin as the time continues to move on. And just really quick, Doug Funny, Crypto Klotz, he says, not sure who needs to hear this, but Bitcoin has never topped without tagging this trend line on the 1-month RSI. If it rises up as fast as it's ever gone up, the soonest it can get there is April. So, I mean, that's kind of like, maybe we can reevaluate this in, 4 months from now and see if maybe the cycle is going to be a little shortened. But you look at the pi cycle top indicator, you look at the rainbow chart, you look at the logarithmic chart, you look at really anything at this point, and it's showing the momentum is up to the upside. So I'll give you a quick rundown of everything that's going on, show you the worst case possibilities, show you the, more likely possibilities. At the end of the day, though, the ultimate possibility is buy the dip, and that's the best opportunity. From my perspective, not financial advice. Although at this point, I don't even know why I still say that, because if you had actually listened to most financial advisors, you would have missed out. And unfortunately, getting news from crazy guys on the internet probably was the better, source of information. But again, not financial advice. So that being said, the interesting chart that I wanted to show you real quick is the Bitcoin versus gold chart. And we're actually having a really nice support right here at around this previous resistance in this area. If I zoom in, you can see right here, we keep dancing on this area. So it looks like Bitcoin does want to potentially start moving up again against gold. So, take that, Peter Schiff. But again, looking at this daily chart, it's okay if we dance inside of this EMA ribbon. It's not the end of the world. You can even fall below this, right? We have a lot of these levels, the 0.61881, the 0.575. I'm not saying we're going to go lower. I'm just saying that this would still maintain constructive pattern. And I mean, you could argue that maybe some of this money is starting to curl down. It looks like it might be dwindling just a bit. But really, what you could be doing is setting up something like this into an anchor and a trigger wave, where you have a bigger wave here and a smaller wave here. And what does price do? It moves up. So potentially, maybe we could be coming down, putting in something like this, right? And that could take us, to the end of this month before having that move. Maybe we come down, maybe we fill the CME Futures Gap, and then continue our move to the upside, right? Things don't go up in straight lines. But what we do have, especially on the most important moving averages that I look at, being the 100, the 50, the 200, and of course the 21 exponential I throw in there just for fun, we have the most constructive version of this pattern. The most constructive version is highest to lowest, right? When these start to, cross over or invert, or you have these, bearish crosses, these death crosses, whatever you want to call them, something like here, that's when you start to see an issue. But when you have this constructive pattern where you go from pink to blue to yellow to green, which again is 200, 100, 50, 21 exponential. That is the most constructive pattern for Bitcoin, especially with the moving averages. And that is when you get these insane moves. Then again, you start to cross down here, and you get the cross here, and that's when things get weird. Well, look at this, guys. We are still we literally only just had the crossover back in September of 2024. So this momentum, you're not going to see this thing just come down like this, right? It's going to take a long time. This is most likely going to continue to the upside. Obviously, this will fluctuate around because that's a shorter term. This is going to start moving up. This is going to obviously stay like this, and this is going to provide a lot of that momentum to the upside. So again, I don't really see any reason to be getting bearish, with the exception, of course, of the meme of the CME Futures Gap, which again is down here to close at around sort of, like I said, that $77,930 roughly area. The only thing though is, if we do consider, if we do start this downtrend, obviously I don't know how it would play out. Maybe we come down here, maybe we bounce up here, but you would want to kind of close this sooner than later, because if we get all the way out to here, and then we fall down, well, now we're breaking some serious structure into the downtrend. So obviously that would be mid-February. So, you don't have to close this. I mean, just because we've had a 96% chance rate of closing it previously, history doesn't always have to play out. These are just probabilities. They are statistics. It's something to keep your eye on, and it's something to let you know that if one day you wake up and Bitcoin is down at around 76,000, don't freak out just because we have had these close before. But again, it's all probabilities. I could never tell you with 100% certainty that this is what's going to happen, but I can tell you that historically it does close like 94 to 96% of the time, right? But of course, there are some that have not closed. But I just want to bring that to your attention because I want to be, I want to be a little bit honest with, I don't want to be overly bullish or overly bearish in any scenario. We just take these drawings off. This is the same chart I just had before. But, again, I wanted to show you guys the money flow. I wanted to show you the, up here, the Fibonacci areas. We had that touch of around 102 passed up, it came down to about 90. And again, the next level, 81 and 75. But really falling any lower than that is most likely not going to happen on the weekly chart. And if it does, I'll let you know. And then we're probably due for a major correction. But, we haven't even, down here, we had multiple interactions with it as the band was coiling. We had multiple interactions with it here. And if we look right here, we haven't even gone down to it yet. I mean, in order for us to even touch the first level of the band, we'd have to go down to 84. So, it's okay, guys, to have a 105% pump and have a 30% correction. It can happen. It obviously does not have to happen. So, just keep your eyes on it, guys. Keep your eyes on the potential downtrend, on this potential, CME Futures Gap. Again, I do think, though, you're going to eventually end up seeing this money. Well, it's not going to go that high, but I do think you're going to see this money flow continue. You may end up putting in some kind of an anchor and a trigger wave. And, let's just look at the really super clean chart. Where is the area of the most consolidation? Right here between the levels of 53 and 70, right? Well, I don't think we're going down to 53 because we've kind of filled in enough down there. If anything, the worst case area, the fake out of this multi-month uptrend, actually more than that, multi-month, August of 22. So actually this is over a year of an uptrend. Then, we're dancing on the heart line. Could we come down here and retest it? Sure. That would still be a constructive uptrend, right? So let's say Bitcoin came down to 70,000, filled the CME Futures Gap. Oh my God, everyone's panic in the street, and boom, we continue to the upside, and now you have $158,000 Bitcoin. So that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Again, if you guys do want to take advantage of that, I'm actually curious to see if this got updated yet with the... Yeah, so apparently they're going to be giving away an iPhone at some point, but you can claim these bonuses if you guys want. Don't forget to sign up if you guys want to do the $200,000 challenge. We also have Femex trading competition as well as Meta Signals. Get that Mafioso NFT if you want that advanced trading edge. They do have a free Discord. Feel free to join it. If you're skeptical, I get it. A lot of these products that I've seen, very pump and dumpy, very scammy. This is something I stand behind clearly. I am obviously an investor in this company. It is something I believe in. We've been tracking, these indicators for over 6 years now. So, like I said, there's only 900 NFTs that are remaining, and they are going to increase in price. So, obviously, if you want to get advantage and lock in that lifetime membership, now's probably the time to do it. So that being said, guys, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. If you do want to learn how to trade, I do have some tutorials. I believe I have Femex either down here, up there. I don't know where it is. You can check that out, guys. But until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.